Wolfpack Nation, welcome back to another episode. Before we get started, don't forget, we have this contest that we're giving away 2 tickets to the sold-out game at Carter Finley Stadium against Notre Dame. And like we said in episode 1, if that part 1 gets 100 likes, we're gonna give the prize pack away. So before you get into this episode, make sure you go back and like it, comment, so we can get that number up to 100, so we can give these tickets away. We don't want them. Give them away. We want to give them to you. So make sure you hit that notification bell, subscribe, do all the things that you can do so you can get this $500 prize. All right, $500 prize. We want to give them away to you. So let's go do it, Wolfpack Nation. All right, Ben, we're back to you, buddy. We in episode 1 we talked a lot of Notre Dame offense against NC State's defense. Talked a little bit about our offense, but I really want to dive into the other side of the ball, talking NC State offense versus Notre Dame defense. And then, like I said in part 1, we'll talk a little special teams, and then maybe talk a little predictions and a little Vegas, even though I don't really gamble, but it's always kind of fun to talk about. So again, NC State's coming off a 24-14 win against UConn. 24 points is, about what NC State was putting up last year. In fact, I think that was our average last year, was about 24 points. And this 24 points felt a little bit different because I thought we ran the ball really well. We only had, I think 8 rushing touchdowns all year, and we had 3 in the last game, which was nice. And Brennan Armstrong had 2 of those. And Michael alluded to that, Brennan, was very productive with his legs, maybe almost too productive, if you will, if that's really a thing, just kind of giving up on some offensive plays. But Ben, I kind of want to know, again, we keep harping it was Navy and Tennessee State, but what have you seen from your defense? You're only giving up 3 points a game, 6 points in the last 2 games, so it's kind of hard to knock a defense for giving up 6 points total in 2 games. But if you had to maybe, have some areas of concern or some things that, maybe some tendencies or whatever that you've seen in the games, what would you say would be something that, Wolfpack fans should be looking for to maybe try to potentially exploit on the defensive side from Notre Dame?
Right, yeah. I think the number one thing that sticks out is how Notre Dame's defense has played early on in games. Mm-hmm. Now, I think I said it in part 1, but obviously, you play Navy, you play a triple option team, you're going to take a little bit of time to adjust to that. That's kind of how that goes a little bit. That was a slower game. There weren't that many possessions in that game. I think, Notre Dame, obviously, they won 42-3, so they scored 6 touchdowns. I think they only had the ball 7 times. That was a slower game in terms of, obviously, if that means Notre Dame only had the ball 7 times, Navy only had it 7 times or whatever it was. There's been a little bit of a slow start. I think, Tennessee State moved the ball a little bit early on in that game on Saturday as well. They played a completely different style of offense. They were kind of running the read option, the spread, that type of stuff, with, a couple quarterbacks coming in and out, trying to keep Notre Dame on their heels a little bit, and Notre Dame frankly was. They were giving up a couple of chunk plays, couple third downs to an FCS school. And so I think if there's something to be a little bit worried about is, how long does it take for Notre Dame's defense to settle in? Now, to their credit, they settled in quite nicely. In both games, though, I guess I would also mention, that those teams missed field goals a couple of times early on in both of those games. So there were other times where those teams were able to move the ball at least a little bit here and there. Notre Dame also fumbled a kickoff against Tennessee State that gave them the ball on the 20-yard line. That was one of those times, and of course they blocked the field goal on that one, so that was good. But so that's really kind of, I don't know. Again, this is the theme that you don't know necessarily because they haven't played a Power 5 opponent yet. But I guess the other side of that coin is if you look at Notre Dame's defensive depth chart, I feel like I'm gonna name darn near every guy here, but you're gonna see graduate player, you're gonna see senior, you're gonna see, with the exception of a few different guys. They picked up Jean Baptiste from Ohio State, graduate transfer. Howard Cross up front, graduate player at Notre Dame, has been there in the program for 5 years. Riley Mills is a senior. Maris Leofau and J.D. Bertrand and Jack Kaiser. They're three linebackers, graduate players. I mean, you get my drift. Cam Hart at cornerback, graduate player.
Yep.
Their nickelback is a graduate transfer from Oklahoma State in Thomas Harper. So you get my point. That's the theme. So these guys have been there before. And then the guys that aren't those are Ben Morrison, who was one of the best probably freshmen on the defensive side of the football in the nation last year. So they've got the horses, like you wouldn't expect, you don't look across and you don't necessarily see some of the, the Isaiah Foskis and that, of years past, but you do see a whole, 1 through 11 and plus a little bit of depth at every position, just solid guys. So, they're going to be consistent. Again, who makes the plays in the big game, I guess, is kind of what you're sort of looking at with some of these guys. Because some of them have played for 2 and 3 years. They were depth players that have moved up the depth chart to be starters now. Now let's see them, be starters in a game where you got to play, 45, 50 snaps on the defensive line, for instance,
Right.
And see how they respond to that. That's what Notre Dame fans are kind of looking to see, is how those guys, outside of the linebackers who, have played every snap for the last 3 years pretty much, the rest of the defense, how are they as every down players?
Yeah, and I think that's a great point that you were alluding to and getting at, was that the moment won't seem to be too big. These are guys that have played a lot of snaps, even if it albeit for other schools. The fact that they've been there, done that, they won't get wide-eyed and bushy-tailed and get rattled on a play if they give up like you said, a chunk play or whatever, that they can come back and fight for the next play. The one thing that I will say again, and we mentioned it, is the advantage for State, and it's not really an advantage. It's more like a tangible advantage, if that makes sense. Is that we played on a Thursday night, so we get a couple extra days of prep. You as a Notre Dame have played 2 games, so there's a little bit more film to look at, and that there's a little less film for Notre Dame to look at for State with only 1 game of prep. So, with all that being said, I think I give some of the advantages, at least on paper, and you obviously these games aren't played on paper, but if you're looking for anything to kind of move the needle, I do like the fact that State has a little bit more of that available to them. Michael, do you see that as anything? Am I just kind of making this up in my head? Kind of give me what you think on that.
Well, I think some of that advantage is kind of neutralized with Navy being the first game, because our offense is nothing like Navy's.
So you're not saying we're going to come out and run the triple option on Saturday?
Yeah, well, maybe, I don't know, maybe, but it's just, there's not much you can really look at least offensively, from that Navy game and be like, okay, we can attack them like that, because it's totally different.
Sure.
So I'd say that kind of neutralizes some of the advantage, but at least from Notre Dame not having as much film on State, especially the new offense, I think that is an advantage that way.
Yeah, I would agree, and like I said, hopefully we held some of this stuff back
Right.
for Notre Dame. But so the one thing that and again, this is new for Michael and I too. We've only got 1 game of footage from this new offense, and some of the things that we liked, and some of the things obviously that need to be cleaned up from a game 1 perspective. Those game 1s, there's always going to be some rough film come the next day. But Michael, what were you impressed with that that something that we did well, and then we can continue that on against Notre Dame?
I mean, running the ball. I mean, that's been a struggle for us the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of that was Brennan Armstrong making something out of nothing, but that's part of the advantage of having a mobile QB, is him being able to contribute to the running game. So we had over 200 yards of on the ground.
Yeah.
So that was definitely encouraging to see.
Yeah.
That's the defense has got to account for a running QB. So, that can open up things for other players too.
Before we continue, I want to take a quick second to tell you about our sponsor, Flightland's Jessup Insurance Group, that has your whole world covered, with agents in 5 offices throughout eastern North Carolina to help you decide how much coverage you need. Offering policies for home and auto, recreational vehicles, commercial, crop, health, life, and employee benefits. They are able to combine options to find a comprehensive solution that works for you. Flightland's Jessup protects the things you love so you can spend less time worrying and more time enjoying them. Find them on Facebook and Instagram at Flightlands Jessup. You can also visit their webpage at www.flightlandsjessup.com. So please make sure to go and check them out.
And then, I guess, kind of, Ben, for you, and I meant to ask you before we kind of dove into that last question is, what would you consider is the strength of the Notre Dame defense? I mean, you kind of answered it without answering it with all the leadership, not leadership, but the seniority, if you will, of the team. But maybe a position group that I guess I'll ask it this way: give me your best position group and your weakest position group. How about that? And then we'll maybe kind of tackle it from there.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually a really difficult question to answer.
Sure.
Because like I kind of said, if you look across Notre Dame's defense, 1 through 11, you don't look out and say, okay, that guy's the liability, and just on the other side of that coin, you don't look out and say that guy's their best player. You know what I mean? So
sure.
That's kind of, I mean, I would say probably their best position group, if I had to pick one and rank them, would be the linebackers. Maris Leofau is kind of he's the heart of the Notre Dame defense. He's sort of the face of the Notre Dame defense. He's a graduate player. JD Bertrand has been around forever and is kind of the middle linebacker. He's a graduate player. He's going to lead Notre Dame in tackles. I mean, chalk it up right now if you're placing prop bets. Jack Kaiser, kind of the same thing. Those 3 guys, Maris Leofau was injured a lot of last year, but Bertrand and Kaiser pretty much play every snap, and Leofau, when he's not hurt, plays every snap. Notre Dame doesn't really rotate guys there like they do the other position groups. So those are the guys that, you feel pretty good about. Leofau has played really, really well in 2 games. Bertrand, like I say, he's just a solid dude. Not a freak athlete by any means, but just a solid middle linebacker. From there, I mean, you look at their defensive line, you feel pretty good about those guys. Like I say, you got graduate transfers, not graduate transfers, all of them, but graduate players and seniors across that, and they're deep. I mean, I look at, the 2 deep at all 4 defensive line kind of spots, and it's like, yeah, these guys have been in the program for a while.
Yeah.
So they're probably next. But that's not without saying, their secondary's not exactly bad either. Like Benjamin Morrison, I can't remember how many interceptions he had as a true freshman last year, but it was a bunch. He picked off Clemson a couple times in the Clemson game, has a pick 6 in the Clemson game. Xavier Watts is a kid that, he came in as a wide receiver and then he played running back. Then they moved him to defense and he's starting at safety. He's probably the guy that you look at and is like, I don't know, like, what is he like as an everyday safety? But, Cam Hart, graduate player, really good player. He's going to be an NFL player. He's at least going to get NFL looks at least. I don't know. So I guess I would say, like I say, linebackers, then defensive line, then secondary, but there's not very much separation between those 3 position groups.
Yeah. You mentioned the depth, and I think depth for both teams is going to be a big thing come Saturday. The weather's going to be south hot. I guess I'll keep it PG. It's gonna be pretty warm and toasty. They're looking about 88, 89 with a heat index of about 96, 97. So, you didn't talk. You kind of mentioned that you don't like to rotate a whole lot, but I think there's going to be a necessity for it, given the weather. So that'll be something to play. Keep an eye on as the game goes on. You have a team in Notre Dame who plays up in Indiana. They don't get that hot humidity. Not to say that they can't fight through it, but it is something to keep in mind. It's that south humidity. I don't know, Ben. Where you calling in from?
I live in Ohio, but
Okay. Yeah.
same as South Bend, same climate. So
Yeah, exactly. So it's a little different, and I'm not saying like these Notre Dame kids come from all over the country. They're a program that recruits. They're not a regional type thing. So, but always something worth mentioning. And I think you kind of were alluding to that. Maybe the weaker of the non-week. We'll go with that. We'll go with your words, right? Because you're saying that your defense is strong, but I am really curious, and Michael mentioned it earlier. I'd like to see State go over the top a little bit more than we did against UConn, and I think we'll have some opportunities. I think Notre Dame will try to take away Brennan's legs as much as possible, and then that might leave some one-on-one opportunities for State to take advantage of. I know the couple of times that State did try to go deep, we completed one. We got a PI on the other, and we really maybe had one other time we tried to go deep, and we didn't really push the envelope. And I think that's something that's going to change this game. I think you're going to see the NC State offense go after Notre Dame's defense. I don't think it's going to be 46 rushes, I think is what we ended up with against Connecticut, something like that. It's been a long time since I've seen State run the ball that many times. What about you, Michael? I really can't remember a time where we ran 46 times.
No, it's a lot. Maybe back in Reggie Gillespie days.
Yeah,
but even
maybe.
that was a lot.
It's been.
But, I mean, yeah, that's what I said at the beginning. I'll be interested to see how they play it. I imagine they'll, like you said, they'll try and take away Brennan's legs. But we know he's not afraid to push it
Correct.
deep.
Right.
I mean, we saw it a ton at UVA, so it will just depend on the receivers versus the DBs at that point. If they're playing, if they're playing them straight up man 1-on-1, then I don't know. Maybe that's something that we can take advantage of if Notre Dame does try to take away his legs.
Yeah. Ben, what about for you? Is there something about the NC State offense that you kind of, whether you've seen this year or in past years, or something with what Robert and I runs that maybe would concern you from a Notre Dame perspective?
I don't know. Yeah, not, and I don't mean to sound pompous when I say this.
Sure. You're from Notre Dame. It's okay.
Fair enough. I deserve that criticism.
No, it's all good, brother.
In all seriousness, I don't know. Like, I think as Notre Dame fans, what I'll say is this: Notre Dame they play the Navies of the world, they play the USCs of the world. They play they play everybody else in between. You know what I mean? And I guess Notre Dame's seen it all, I guess. Al Golden, I mean, this isn't exactly his first rodeo as a defensive coordinator.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I don't necessarily look at certain things and say, that, this particular schematic thing is going to necessarily be bad. I guess what I would say, though, is, Notre Dame has at different times struggled with mobile quarterbacks. I mean, it's just a different,
it's tough.
Mobile quarterbacks who can act. It is tough. Yeah. And I mean, legitimate dual threat quarterbacks, I guess. I mean, there have been, you can call a quarterback a mobile quarterback, but if he can't complete a 10-yard pass, then, what good is that? You know what I mean? And I don't think Brennan Armstrong is that. In fact, Notre Dame actually, I think, kicked the tires before Sam Hartman committed, kicked the tires on Brennan Armstrong in the transfer portal. So obviously that's a guy that they like and respect. And I believe he was dinged up the last time Notre Dame played Virginia. So I don't know that he played much, if at all.
Yeah.
Game.
I think he got a concussion. I think it might have been the game. I think when we played Virginia in 2021, I think he may have gotten knocked out in our game, and then he missed the Notre Dame game the week after. I think that.
Yeah, I was trying to remember that detail. I know Notre Dame.
Yeah.
I looked up the score. It was 28-3, but like I say, I don't think Armstrong played. So.
Yeah, and that was the 12th game probably. So that was remember that because he played 11 games and tore it up, and
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I mean that's a fair analysis there, and that wasn't any stretch of the imagination a gotcha question like you said. I mean, you guys have Ohio State on the schedule this year, and you play your fair share of top 15, top 20 opponents every year, and I think that the one thing that NC State, and again it's it's hard to do these previews, 1, 2, 3 games into the season because you just haven't seen it all, and the teams haven't got their full stride. And what State's looking for is just a continued improvement on the offensive side, and they want to see, State wants to see receivers get open and make catches. That was kind of a concern, a couple of drop passes. And when both of these teams step up in competition, the line, or the availability win margin is much thinner. You can't be making mistakes. And the one thing I will say for State, on the State end of it, is we played a really clean ball game against UConn last week. We had one penalty for 5 yards, which was a false start on a wide receiver, and no turnovers. And I think if we can kind of duplicate that, if Carter Finley can be loud, maybe get a couple false starts, some procedural things, that can maybe shift the pendulum a little bit. Again, when these games are so tight, you're looking for any kind of advantage, and I think the 12th man at Carter Finley can do that. I guess the next question, or the next thing I kind of want to talk about is special teams. Ben, you mentioned that you guys had a blocked field goal against Tennessee State on Saturday. How is your kicking and punting? Because State's working in Michael punter
from last year.
Punter from last year, not the whole year, but he took over like 3/4 of the way. Newhauser, was that his name? Newcastle, yeah. So we have a holdover punter there. We have a new kicker. He went 1 for 2 on Thursday. He had a 44-yarder and he missed a 49, which was his first kick at NC State. He's a graduate transfer. He's been at a couple places, but most recently he was with Western Kentucky. So just kind of, Ben, talk about your end of the special teams program.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really hard question to answer, mostly because, like I say, I alluded to the Navy game. They scored 42 points, scored on 6 out of 7 possessions. The other possession, they missed a field goal. They have a graduate transfer kicker, Spencer Schrader, who came from USF, I believe. Golly, yeah, it's USF. He's attempted 1 field goal. I think it was, 45 yards or so, missed in Dublin. 6 for 6.
That was some crappy weather and maybe some crappy sod, and it looked messy. So, I got
that
you.
is true.
Yeah.
So it's hard to really tell,
Yeah, for sure.
They obviously went out and got a graduate transfer because they felt good about him,
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of that. They haven't punted the ball a lot. Again, they played Navy and Tennessee State, so they haven't punted the ball a lot. So not really any. Again, if you're talking about question marks, and like you say, if you're trying to, as an NC State fan, think of like, okay, where's the advantage going to come? Well, Notre Dame hasn't had to make plays on special teams to beat the 2 teams that they beat. It was just kind of, let's field a kick and make sure we don't, fumble and that type of stuff. Notre Dame fumbled a kickoff against Tennessee State, although, if you ask any Notre Dame fan, there was a little bit of helmet-to-helmet dirty contact on that. In all seriousness, the kid left with a concussion afterwards. So, the proof is in the pudding, I guess. But, so that's a big question mark for Notre Dame. They haven't been tested there. And so, like I say, if you're looking for something to, for one team to get an advantage or not, or whatever, that's a place where NC State maybe has a chance to do something like that. Because, like I say, those Notre Dame special teamers just haven't been there a lot.
Yeah, they haven't been challenged.
Right. And the one thing I guess that I would say is that Notre Dame blocked a boatload of kicks last year. However, special teams coordinator left to go to the Indianapolis Colts after last season. So, maybe that's not the same. For the longest time, the joke, I guess, among Notre Dame fans was that Notre Dame was fair catch you on punt returns. Like, it was just kind of like, let's just send the guy back there that's going to catch it and then just fair catch it, and we're not going to deal with it. That was kind of a Brian Kelly thing. It was like,
it's not working out too well for LSU. They've been fumbling some punts the last couple of years.
Yeah. So, but since Marcus Freeman has taken over, they return punts now, so that's good.
Yeah.
But like I say, unproven group.
Yeah, no, and this just came to me. NC State ends up winning the Hurricane Bowl on a blocked punt, so that I don't see it being coming down to that, but that is something that NC State does pride itself on is special teams. We typically get 1 to 2 blocked punts a year and a couple blocked field goals a year. It feels like so. Who knows? Maybe something like that, is the difference maker in a ball game which leads me into Vegas. Vegas, I believe this game opened at 8, and I think it's down to 6.5. I guess depending on who you believe. Just kind of, and I'm not a gambler, so but it's kind of fun to talk about anyway. Ben, for you, Notre Dame goes on the road. Like I said, anywhere from 6.5 to 8-point favorite. Just kind of give me your thoughts on that. Is that about right? Do you think it's a little high, a little low?
I don't know. Kind of the joke about Notre Dame is that good teams win and great teams cover. I mean, that's something that Notre Dame fans always love to say. If you ask a Notre Dame fan, they'd probably rather it be a close line because Notre Dame seems to play better in games where the line's close than as opposed to, they're supposed to win by 20 and then now you're sweating out a 3-point victory over a team. I think that feels about right. I mean, there's a lot of unknowns about Notre Dame just because of who they've played so far. I mean, we've acknowledged that a bunch of times, and I think any rational Notre Dame fan would say that. I know there are
rational,
some.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, there aren't many. I mean,
No.
I don't think
I
I'm
don't think we have many
rational all the time.
rational state fans. So I think that line is even, if we can use a Vegas term. Yeah,
absolutely. So I don't know. I think I'll tell you there are some Notre Dame fans that think that that's ludicrous. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Those Vegas people know stuff that we don't know or something. I'm always wowed by how that works.
Likewise.
Yeah, and so I if I'm placing a bet, which maybe I'll do, maybe I won't. I don't know. I think I would take Notre Dame to win by a touchdown. But because Notre Dame does this all the time. Like they're notorious for the slow start, the game that kind of goes into the third quarter and it's kind of up in the air, and then it's won or lost right there at the beginning. They either just score 3 touchdowns in 2 minutes or it goes the other way. So that's been Notre Dame's blueprint a lot, it feels like. So I don't know.
Yeah. What about you, Michael? What are your thoughts on the line?
I think that's I was a little surprised. I thought it would be maybe closer to 10.
Likewise. Yeah, I thought it'd be higher.
But looking back in the last 3 years, as a home underdog, State is 4-0 against the spread and 3-1 win-loss.
Yep.
So that's probably factoring in that home field advantage. I mean, there's definitely a home field advantage we have. So that line probably reflects a little bit of that, like 1 or 2 points, which is right in line with it being, right around a touchdown. So
Sure. All right, Ben. So we got to do 2 questions. Notre Dame wins if
they're able to be balanced on offense.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And then other than the obvious, Notre Dame loses if
I think they lose if their defense lets Brennan Armstrong do whatever he wants on offense, essentially. I think they'll be able to find a way to stop something, I guess. I mean, they'll be able to maybe stop the inside run, but then, if you're allowing rollouts and letting them get outside the pocket and, essentially RPO it, I guess, to a certain degree, and, he can pick up 6 yards or he throws it downfield for 20 and you're caught in between those things all game, then that's probably bad. And like I say, if Notre Dame can't run the ball, then that's probably their recipe for losing a game.
The last question I have for you, and then I'll throw it at Michael as well. Give me your prediction.
I think it. I think I said it without saying it. I think Notre Dame plays a lot of these type of games. I guess they're used to this, and so we've seen this movie before. I think we're gonna watch a close game into the late third, early fourth quarter. In the end, I think. Notre Dame makes a big play or two and pulls out, about a 7-point win.
And then Michael and myself, I believe Michael in our season preview, you had us winning. Has that changed?
I don't think so. Got for consistency. I mean,
there's already receipts that said there's already receipts that said you had us winning. You can't hedge now.
Absolutely, yeah. So I mean, if we do win, like I said, it's gonna be because our defensive line and linebackers are able to stop the Notre Dame run. And we have to force Sam Hartman to pass a lot, and he hasn't had much success doing that against Tony Gibson's defense in Carter Finley.
Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So, I mean, for score prediction, I'll say I think it will. If we win, it'll be low scoring. I'll say like a 27-24 NC State. But like I said, I think the line that came out is about accurate for kind of the general feeling. So, I mean, if this game ends up, a 30-23 Notre Dame victory, I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Yeah. I saw the line itself, but I didn't see the over under. Anybody know that by chance? Again, I'm not really into gambling. I was just kind of curious to see what they think, how many points are going to be scored in this thing. Because I'm kind of with you, Michael. I think this game will be in the 20s. I just know State's defense is really good. And Ben, this isn't a dig at Notre Dame. I just haven't seen enough from them because of the competition they played. So I don't think a lot of people know who they really are yet. So I do have State winning, but it's going to be like by less than a touchdown if State wins. And if Notre Dame wins, I think it's going to be double digits. That's just the way I see it. So I had a score prediction similar to Michael. I had like 28-25. So
over under is 49.5.
So my score is over. So actually, no, just under. Yeah. No, wait. No, over.
28-25 would be over.
I told you in the first episode, high school math's hard. All right, cool. So Ben, we thank you so much for jumping on with us tonight and covering this preview. It'll be an exciting game, regardless. State fans always love seeing a national brand come into Carter Finley. It just doesn't happen enough. So when it does, we get a little extra amped for it, even with it being a noon game. So I'm excited to see how this is going to play out, and I definitely respect the Notre Dame brand. I don't fear it. I welcome the challenge, and I'm excited to see what our team can do playing against a quote-unquote traditional blue blood from the sport. So that'll wrap it up for us, Wolfpack Nation. Again, don't forget that it may or may not be too late to get in on that contest that we're trying to go away with those tickets. So make sure you're liking and subscribing and commenting and doing all the things that you need to do to win that. And we have all that laid out in the first couple episodes of this. And, and if you're participating in the contest, you've already liked, subscribed, and done all that good stuff and given us good thumbs up and given us good juju. So we appreciate that. But as always, Wolfpack Nation, we'll see you in the next episode, and go Pack.